I moved to the UK in 2011. I had a decent salary. I was disciplined with money. I wasn't spending recklessly. I wasn't living beyond my means. So by most measures, I was doing the right things. And yet for years, I was quietly making a few financial mistakes that was silently costing me. Not because I was careless, but because I was applying a set of beliefs about money that made perfect sense in India, but very little sense over here. And when I look around at the Indian community here in the UK, engineers, doctors, IT professionals, finance people, incredibly smart and hardworking people, I see the same pattern playing out over and over again. Good incomes, good intentions, but financial habits that were built for a different country, different tax system, different set of rules. Habits that quietly work against you over here, even when you think you are being responsible. In today's video, I want to talk about 3 of them. 3 specific things that I see Indians living in the UK getting wrong about money, consistently and usually without even realizing it. Don't get me wrong, it's not because we are bad with money, but because nobody actually sat us down and explained how things work over here. So let's fix that right now together. I want to say something before we get into this. None of what I'm about to share is obvious. I didn't figure any of this out quickly. I figured it out slowly, sometimes expensively over 15 years of living here. So here we go. Mistake number 1, the ISA, which stands for Individual Savings Account. If you have been in the UK for any length of time, you have heard of it. And if you're anything like most Indians out here, you have probably thought, yes, I should probably do something about it, and then done nothing. I want to explain why that is one of the most expensive mistakes that you can do while living in the UK. Every single UK resident get an ISA allowance of £20,000 every tax year. That's the amount you can put into an ISA. And every penny that goes in, every pound of growth, every dividend, every capital gain it makes is tax-free. Not tax deferred, not taxed when you withdraw it. It's completely and permanently tax-free, full stop. Now I know what some of you are thinking. £20,000 per year. I can't save that much. And that's completely fine. You don't have to utilize your full allowance. The point is, whatever you are investing, whenever you currently have it, in a regular trading account, in savings currently sitting in bank, or maybe in Indian mutual funds, if that money could instead be sitting in an ISA, it should be. Because every pound of return generated outside an ISA is potentially taxable, while every single pound generated inside an ISA is not. Let me give you a concrete number so this isn't abstract. Let's say you invest £500 per month, which is about £6,000 per year, into a diversified global index fund. You do this for 25 years. Assuming a modest average return of even 7% per year, you have ended up with roughly £400,000. Now here's the difference that container makes. If that £400,000 is sitting in an ISA, when you draw it down in retirement, you pay 0 tax on it. On the other hand, let's say that very same amount was sitting in a regular trading account or investment account. You would owe capital gains on any gains that you make over your annual allowance, and potentially income tax on any dividends you receive along the way. Now, depending on your tax situation, that could easily be over tens of thousands of pounds difference over a lifetime. But here is what really concerns me. And this is specific to Indians living here in the UK, because we have a habit of sending money back home to India, investing in Indian stocks and mutual funds, buying property in India. We often end up with significant assets outside the UK tax system, while not fully utilizing the incredibly generous tax-free structures that UK offers us. Instead, we are choosing to invest in places where our returns are eroded by currency risk and taxed as income, while leaving the best tax-free wrappers in the UK sitting empty or underused. The fix is straightforward. Now, before you send another rupee to India, or before you open any fixed deposit over there, and even before you put any other pound into a general investment account in the UK, just ask yourself this one question: have I fully utilized my ISA allowance for this year? If the answer is no, that should be the first conversation you should have with your money. Now let's talk about mistake number 2. And this one is enormous. I genuinely believe it cost an average Indian professional working here in the UK hundreds and thousands of pounds over the course of their working life. The pension. I know the moment I say pension, eyes glaze over. It feels a bit distant and complicated. We don't necessarily have the same relationship with pension as people over here do. We think about property, we think about gold, we think about building a corpus on mutual funds to retire on. The pension for some reason doesn't naturally sit in an Indian mental model of financial planning. But here's the thing, the UK pension system, specifically the workplace pension with employer's contribution and government tax relief, is one of the most extraordinary wealth building mechanism for anyone anywhere in the world. And most Indians living here are not utilizing it properly. Let me show you the math, because the math is what makes it real. Let's say you earn £60,000 a year. You are a higher taxpayer, typically in 40% tax bracket. Let's say if you opt for a workplace pension, your employer offers to match pensions contribution for up to 5% of your salary. So this is what will happen if you contribute, let's say £3,000 per year, which is like 5% of 60,000, which is your salary, into your pension. Now first, because this pension contribution comes out of your gross salary before income tax, you automatically get 40% tax relief. Now that £3,000 contribution only cost you £1,800 out of your take-home salary. Moreover, the government puts in another £1,200 as tax relief. Then your employer also matches your 5%, which means they put in another £3,000. So typically you put in £1,800 of your own money and £6,000 goes into your pension. That is a 233% instant return before the money has even been invested. So nothing, not mutual funds, not property, not gold, no investment in the world gives you 233% return the moment you have contributed. And then the money grows tax-free inside the pension wrapper on top of that. Now I want to talk about something even more specific. Something which I see very common in the Indian community over here. A lot of us contribute the minimum to get the employer match and then stop. So we contribute 5%, employer matches 5%, making it a total of 10%. And we think we have done our bit. So that's definitely a good starting point. But if you're a higher taxpayer and you can afford to contribute more, then reducing your pension contribution to take more take-home salary is actually a very expensive choice. So every pound that you contribute costs you 60 pence. And every pound that you don't contribute costs you the full pound. And you've already paid 40 pence tax on it. The other thing that people miss is annual allowance. You can contribute up to £60,000 per year into your pension, or up to your total earnings, whichever is lower, and get tax relief on all of it. To be honest, most people are nowhere near this limit. Let's say if you have had high earning years and you have unused allowance from the last 3 tax years, then you can carry forward and contribute more in a single tax year. This is called carry forward. And it's a legitimate, legal and a genuinely powerful way to accelerate your pension savings, especially for people who may have spent some years in India or elsewhere before coming to the UK. See, by all means, I'm not saying that put everything into a pension and forget about it. When it comes to pensions have some very strict rules about when you can access them, which is currently 57 from year 2028, and that too just a part of it. But for wealth that you're genuinely building for the long term, for your retirement, the pension is not the afterthought, it should be the foundation. Now let's talk about mistake number 3, and this one is more subtle, which is probably why it's the most persistent. A lot of Indians living in the UK spent enormous mental and financial energy optimizing their rupee wealth, tracking Indian mutual fund performance, debating which Indian stocks to buy, deciding whether to buy property in Pune, Hyderabad, Bengaluru, and sending money back home regularly to build your corpus over there. And I do understand why, because India is home. The connection is real. And purely in rupee terms, these things do make sense, depending on your situation and financial goals. But here's the question I want you to sit with for a moment. Exactly what percentage of your financial energy, your time, your money is going towards building wealth in pounds, in the currency that you actually live in, the currency your mortgage is in, the currency your grocery, your council tax, your current living expenses are in? Because for most Indians that I personally know in the UK, the honest answer to that question is not enough. We often end up with a strange split where we are quite sophisticated when it comes to our Indian investments. We know our Nifty from the Sensex, we know the difference between large cap and flexi cap funds. But for some reason, we haven't got around building a strong UK portfolio. We haven't maximized the tax wrappers that UK offers, like the Paisa, pensions. Precisely what I'm trying to say is that we don't have a proper UK financial plan that matches our UK income, UK expense, and the UK life that we live. And that part of it is quite psychological, because India is familiar. The investing language like mutual funds, SIPs, NAVs is the one we have lived with. On the other hand, the UK system, especially if you're new to the country, you have just started earning here, it can feel a little complicated and foreign. Be it ISA or SIP or LISA or GIA, it's altogether a different alphabet and we have never got a proper introduction to it. But the consequence of this is quite real and significant. I'll give you one example. Suppose you have £30,000 sitting in an Indian mutual fund. In rupee terms, it might be worth roughly 32 lakh rupees today. Now suppose that fund grows at 12% per year in rupee terms, which is a pretty strong performance. So purely in rupee terms, your 32 lakh of investment in mutual funds would have grown to approximately 1 crore or 99 lakh rupees, which is pretty impressive. But the rupee has continued to depreciate against the GBP. Let's be super conservative and let's say after 10 years, the pound is close to 130 rupees, which is not at all an aggressive assumption given the historical trends. Your 99 lakh would convert to just 76,000 pounds. That's from an initial 30,000 pound investment, which is a 153% over 10 years, which is about 9.7% annualized in pound terms. It's not bad. But if you had invested that same 30,000 pounds into a global diversified index fund through your ISA account, even at a historically conservative return rate of 7%, which by the way is completely tax-free, would have turned that same 30,000 pounds into 59,000 pounds completely tax-free, which of course is less in absolute pounds compared to your India returns. But remember, every penny that you have earned here is tax-free, no income tax, no capital gains, nothing. Moreover, no currency risk. And the real after-tax return is substantially better. The point is not that India is always worse. The point is that most of us have never done this calculation properly. We feel like India is working because the rupee number looks good, because we are more attached to the Indian system, we understand Indian markets better. So we somehow feel like India is working because the rupee number looks good. But once you translate that into your own currency and factor in the rupee depreciation and the taxes you end up paying, the whole calculation changes. So build your wealth where your life is. That doesn't mean ignoring India completely. It means being intentional, deciding consciously what India exposure you want, for what purpose, and keeping it proportionally to a financial plan that is predominantly in UK pounds. So there they are, 3 things. The ISA that you are underutilizing or not utilizing at all. The UK pensions that you're thinking as an afterthought. And the habit of building wealth in the wrong currency for the life you're actually living. None of these are exotic or complicated. As always, everything I've shared here is general information, not financial advice. Please speak to a qualified financial advisor for guidance specific to your situation. So this is me, Pratik, signing off from Pound and Paisa. Over and out.